Hi and welcome. I'm Josh Sharp, and I've got with me today a very special guest. Her name is Kim Jones, and she is a fellow coach. She's also putting on a telesummit that we're going to kind of discuss in the next few days. And I've got her here. I had a conversation with her, and we just started talking about, what does it mean to create a lifestyle without overwhelm, without stress, and I just realized that was one of the focuses of what her telesummit was about, and I was really intrigued. I was really interested and wanted to learn more. So I invited her on, and I wanted to introduce her and give her, have her share with us some key insights because she's been doing the interviews, preparing for the telesummit. I'm sure she's gleaned some amazing information from a lot of different experts, and I'd like to bring them to you today. So first off, Kim, thank you for coming out. I really appreciate having you here today.
Thank you, Josh. I appreciate you having me too.
Yeah. So, kind of what I want to, just hear from you is just, how did you get started in this? Like, what brought you to coaching, and what brought you to, study and learn this route and take this route with your life?
That's a good story. I have worked in my career in a lot of different areas. I grew up working in recreation and doing a lot of work with kids, and I got involved in the nonprofit sector. And then from there I said, what do I want to do with this? I love working with these kids. These families are absolutely amazing and inspirational. I was involved as a volunteer at a camp for children with cancer. I was then working at a private camp, and we started with some doctors and nurses from UCLA, a camp for children with congenital heart disease, where we took them out to Catalina Island every summer and provided a just fun recreational summer camp experience where they could go and just be themselves and be with other kids like them, so they didn't have to be different. And all the medical staff were there to provide that, and myself and all the rest of the staff were there to provide the water skiing and the climbing wall and the camp songs and the campfire and all that great stuff. And I said to myself, what do I want to do next? And so I ended up going back to graduate school, and I studied psychology, and I became a marriage and family therapist. And that's some of the work that I've been doing for the last 15 years, which I love. And in that process, I'd studied and learned a lot of work. I was a very systems-based therapist, and I learned through the work of Cloe Madanes. And so probably about, I think, 5 or 6 years ago, I reached out to her because she was here in San Diego and said, I would love to get some mentorship from you. And she wasn't providing anything at the time, but less than a year later, I got an email from her that she was hosting a conference here in San Diego for a week and invited me to come and participate. And so I went, and it was all about strategic intervention and her work and her collaborative work with Tony Robbins. And it was absolutely amazing, inspirational, and life-changing for me. And at that time, she then invited all of us in that group into the founding class of a program that they are currently running called the Robbins-Madanes Strategic Intervention Coach Training. So I participated in that, and I'm still an active member in that group. That's how we've met. And that's really, when I started participating in that, I was starting to do coaching, and I was doing some life coaching, and that's kind of evolved for me over the years into doing business coaching with a twist on life, because a lot of the clients that have come to me for coaching are looking to get out of that overwhelm. What I saw in my counseling practice was a lot of people come in and they're feeling really successful in one area of their life and miserable in others. So I might have really successful entrepreneurs, doctors, surgeons, women executives, really doing well in one area of their life, but either their relationships are falling apart, or their self-care isn't there, they don't have wellness, they don't have friends or hobbies. A lot of the women I work with, they have families now, and they're like, who am I? I've lost myself. And so it really became for me all about helping people find that balance and how to get that connection in all the areas of their life. And so a lot of the business clients that I work with now come in for exactly that. They come in because they're saying, okay, I have this great business and I'm growing it, but I'm also doing this with my spouse, and we need help in the communication piece, or we want to learn how to balance having business but also still having our family life, and how to separate that. And I don't mean that they're like totally separate, but we do need to set up boundaries and times for each thing in our life. So that's kind of how I got started. I'm loving the work that I do. It's just so much fun. I have a client that just opened up a fitness studio downtown, and it was just so cool watching her transformation and go from working in an area, in a job, a job that was more than 9 to 5, to doing what she loves and what she's passionate about. So it's been a really fun journey and a great path.
Very cool. Is that kind of your area of focus? Or are you kind of more focused on business owners or people in transition?
Yeah, so in my business coaching, I am focused on helping people make breakthroughs. So whether that's shattering overwhelm or transitioning from one type of work to another, or taking your business from 2 million to 10 million, it just depends what your focus is and what you are looking for.
Okay, so it's more about the, what's that shift that needs to be made, right? What's the breakthrough that needs to be made in their life? So how do they find you now? Like, do they just come through referrals, or do you do networking?
Yeah, so let me clarify. It's about that. What's that shift that you want to make, and also how are you going to have the life that you love by making that shift? It's all about, we're working hard and we want to find something that we're passionate about and that we love doing, but we also want to have a certain lifestyle or a way that we're living our life that's really important to us. And we all define that differently, but it's really important to define that and to make sure that we're creating that balance, whatever that right balance is for us.
So let's talk about that, because that's kind of the that's kind of the driver and the impetus for a lot of these interviews is what's what do you focus on, the lifestyle? Do you focus on the business? Where did that come? So how has that evolved for you? Like, how has the focus on lifestyle affected your business and affected your growth, or not in some ways? How has that worked?
Sure. Well, I like to say we're always still growing. So we have different stages, just like we have stages of development in, age-wise and progressively as we go through life. I feel like we have stages of development in our business and career. And for me, definitely, I feel like I'm coming back around to something that I really sought but didn't know what it was, probably back in my 20s and where I wanted to go, but I wasn't sure what that was. So I kind of went on this path and this journey and did all these different, amazing experiences, jobs, my career, and it's all bringing me to where I need to be now. And as I'm getting there in this next stage, I'm like, this is what it was. I just didn't know what that, I didn't know at the time. So it's really cool. So repeat your question again exactly. I want to make sure I go directly where you're going. I'm sorry, I got lost in that thought.
That's okay. That's okay. So how did how did your focus on lifestyle affect the directions that you were taking, or the decisions that you were making?
Yeah. A very important question. Okay, I want to make sure I go directly into that. So for me, lifestyle's always been important to me. I've always been about I've always been a hard worker. When I was in school, I studied hard. I do the things I need to do. I worked the extra jobs so that I could go play and travel and, take a water ski and a snow ski trip on spring break, half and half in college and things like that. So I was always about doing the things I'm passionate about, which are getting outdoors and being active, traveling, seeing different parts of the world. So lifestyle has always been important to me. So it's always been about, I want to do this. I have these dreams. I think I made a bucket list back when I was in middle school or early high school. These are the things I want to do. And I wrote it down on a piece of paper and saved it. And it was so cool finding that box and reading that paper years later, oh, I did that, I did that, I did that. Oh yeah, I studied abroad, I did that. It was really cool. And it was really only took me about through the end of college. And I don't think I realized what I was doing at that time. But so to me, it's always been about creating those enriching life experiences and the things that really make me tick. So how that works for me now, I'm a mother. I'm a parent to 3 children, and so for me, there's a couple things that are really important to me. One is spending time with my kids and being there with them after school, at their activities, all of that. Another thing that's important to me is visiting friends, traveling, sharing that experience for my kids. And so I intentionally decide what those things are that I want, and then I fit my life and my schedule around that. So I know these are the hours I can work. And people go, oh, but I'd really like to come in on Saturday. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't work on Saturday. That's when I'm at baseball games and soccer tournaments and
Right.
all these things. And it doesn't mean that I don't occasionally find time to take a call, but I'm certainly not going to have time to probably go in my office on one of those days. But so I've intentionally kind of set the structure of how I do my work so that I can live my life and have the lifestyle that's important to me.
Right. Really cool. So I love that, and I think that's kind of the that's the big message that I think every person I've been interviewing so far has just had that same common thing. It's like, decide that lifestyle that you want, and then that gives you the juice, the fuel to do the work to attain it. Whereas I think we're kind of brought up in our culture to believe it's the other way around, where it's like, oh, I need to work, and then once I get the work done and get the money, then I can maybe have the lifestyle, possibly.
Right. Right. There was a great book I listened to. I do a lot of audiobooks because I can just do that while I'm walking the dog or driving in the car. I don't, often have as much time to sit and read. But there was a great audio I heard years ago, and it was the Rich Dad Poor Dad book. And what I loved, one of the things that just stood out the most to me from that was, and it was in talking to your kids, and it was like the two different dads' ways of saying it. It was if you say, I want to do this, or I want to buy something, one would respond, oh, we don't have enough. The other would respond, okay, well, what do we need to do to get that? And right. I think that just is the little difference there. It's being solution oriented and saying, okay, I want this. How am I going to get that? So you have to decide what it is you want, and then you figure out how you're going to get that.
Right.
And it doesn't mean sometimes, like, there's no perfect story to this. It doesn't mean sometimes we don't get knocked down and fall on our butt and feel frustrated and start going down that what I call negative spiral of thinking. But as you become conscious of that, you can break that cycle really quick and get back up.
So let's talk about that then. So that's a great lead into what you want to discuss, is just how do you overcome that overwhelm, that frustration, and that all those that downward spiral, like you were saying. How do you once you're stuck in it, how do you start working your way out of it?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways. Like, we're all different and unique people, and so from the work that I've done, I've really learned that different things work for different people. So it's finding those strategies that fit for you, or finding a strategy and figuring out a way to make that strategy fit for you. So for example, when you catch yourself thinking, if you're not aware of where those beliefs are coming from or what those rules are and why you're going down in that negative spiral, then you can keep going, right? So if you become aware, like, why am I thinking this? Where's this coming from? The example I just gave recently in an interview that I was conducting was, I said, as a mom, there was a field trip that was coming up and I couldn't go on it. And, I try to be really active and volunteer in the kids' school and community, and it just wasn't going to fit. There was some other time I was taking off for something else, and my youngest daughter was, of course, disappointed in me because, I've gone on their field trips and she's seen me go on her siblings' field trips, and I said, I just can't do this one. And she was disappointed, and I really took that on at first and was feeling really bad about it. And then because I've trained myself, the light bulb just came on in my head, and I said, wait a minute, where's that rule coming from? What's that about? Why am I feeling bad? And I could take that all the way back to, when I was probably a preteen teenager and I was babysitting, and I was like, oh, when I'm a mom someday. And then when I was in my 20s watching some of my friends have kids and I didn't have kids yet and being like, oh, when I'm a mom, I'm not going to do that. I remember seeing parents drop their kids off at baseball practice, and I'm like, oh, I'd never do that. I drop my son off at baseball practice all the time. There's no possible way I could be at every game, every practice, especially when I have 3 active kids. So I was able to look at where's that rule coming from, and does that fit for me now? And it didn't fit anymore. It wasn't my reality. It wasn't the situation or the life that I was in. And so I was able to say, well, that's not a good rule anymore. So what's my new rule going to be? And my new rule was, a good mom does enough. I'm going to be good enough. And I really like that phrase, and I use that with a lot of my clients. It's really about being good enough. It's not about being 100 or 150% or whatever we've all been pushed to think. It's about being good enough. It's not about being perfect. And so I was able to rewrite that rule, and the new rule is a good mom does enough. You know, a good mom does what she can, and part of what she can is she does some of these things, and she takes care of herself and does other things too. And piggybacking on that, that really gets into some area that a lot of us neglect, which is self-care. Oh no, I'm too busy. I have to do all these things. And we don't take time to take care of ourselves. And it's really important to make that time and take care of ourselves so that we can be good enough.
Yeah, that's a huge key to it. We got a question from Calvin Witcher. He asks, what do you believe the root of being overwhelmed is, or why do you think we get overwhelmed?
That's a really good question. I think what happens is so much information comes in, and our thoughts and beliefs about that, our inability to go into solution, thought processes, it can overwhelm our system. So we're all wired differently. Different things are going to affect us in different ways. But when there's too much coming in at once, and we're not having ways to solve those problems, as well as find ways to de-stress and re-energize ourselves, like I was talking about self-care. A friend of mine yesterday was talking about feeling stressed, and I said, and I know her really well, and I said, hey, you need to go out for a run. I know that helps you. Mm-hmm. And doing those things that keep us balanced and help us feel whole, and it's different for everyone. A lot of times, I'll have clients write down like 3 or 4 things they can do when they start to feel overwhelmed. And that list is going to be different for people. There's probably a lot of things that are along the same route. Some people choose to meditate. Some people choose to exercise. Some people choose to go get into their creative activities. Like I have clients that will say, I go paint. Some say that they'll read. But doing things to help us unwind and slow down a little bit and be present really helps us get refocused.
Yeah. So it's almost like a list of antidotes. Like when you hit that overwhelm, that you just you use one of the antidotes.
Yeah, because what happens if you don't go into a different action is you start getting your needs met in a negative way, and you go down that negative spiral, and then that thinking can just go and go and go and spin, right? And so in cognitive behavioral therapy, they talk about Beckinellis, or I think it's Beckinellis, they talk about cognitive distortions. We get into these negative thinking patterns, and they start spinning us. So we get into our shoulds, or we get into the crystal ball thinking. We start projecting. I say, take that crystal ball and shatter it. What's happening right now? We don't need to worry about the future, right? We get into black and white thinking. Instead of thinking in shades of gray.
Right. No, that's really cool. So that's kind of, once you've got into that spiral, that might be the antidote out. Like go for a run, or change, fire one of those triggers. What can you do to kind of prevent yourself from going down that spiral to begin with?
Yeah. So I think what happens is the more and more we get focused and clear with how we want to be living our life and the intentions that we set each day, then we're stepping into each day and choosing that. But it doesn't mean that there aren't going to be roadblocks or days that things come at us that we're not expecting. And so I think it's really important to know that we're not trying to prevent anything from happening. It's going to happen from time to time. Right. It's being able to recognize it and do something about it. So there's an exercise I'll do, and I've done this with the teens that I work with in my counseling practice, where I have them draw a body, and I have them color in where they feel all the different emotions with different colored pencils. And I've used this exercise with adults too, and they kind of think it's fun to color and do all that. But what that does is it gets us in touch with what's going on inside of us and where we feel that. And a lot of times before it gets to our mind, we can feel it in our body. So right. I've learned when I'm starting to feel overwhelmed, I get this surge that kind of comes through in my chest. And I can feel it coming. And it's when I start to feel that, sometimes I notice that feeling before I actually realize and I'm thinking about what's happening. And so when I get that feeling, I go, oh, I need to take a couple slow, deep breaths, or I need to go take my time out. I need to grab a drink of water. I need to eat something, right? There's all different antidotes that I have for that. But it's recognizing that that feeling's coming and then being able to do something about it. We have to make that shift. It's like it's like a spiral, like a tornado. And the idea isn't that you can't always keep it from starting, but as soon as you recognize it's happening, you can cut it off and go in a different direction. And so it really becomes like what we've learned in RMT. It becomes about choosing to get your needs met in either positive ways or negative ways.
Right. Excuse me. I'm curious about the kids coloring the spots in their body. 'Cause kids just have an open honesty. Like they don't, we as adults, we have filters that we've built up, and kids are just like, okay, it's just raw and real. Have you ever seen any patterns? Like you start to see, okay, this emotion is this in this area, or there's certain colors that. Have you ever noticed anything like that, or is it just kind of random?
I would hate to generalize. A lot of what I see is it's in the chest and heart and in the head. And it's actually just fascinating how different it can be amongst people. Sometimes anger is in the hands or the feet, right? Okay. Especially with more active, physically aggressive type. Specifically, I'm thinking about kids, but as adults, like I know for me, and I don't do this anymore as of recent years because of an ankle injury, but I've always played recreational soccer, and it's just super fun for me. It was something I started doing in college on a co-ed intramural team, and I just continued doing it all through my adult life, and it was my Wednesday night game, and at other times it was more than one night a week, but in the latter years it was my Wednesday night game. The weeks that I didn't get that, by Friday, I could feel it. It was my release. Like, it was good to release. It was good to get out and kick that ball and to run like that. And there was something about that that was different than going to the gym or taking a hike or a run, but it was something about that ball and that physical contact. We're all different, and we have different ways that we release. Some people use meditation. They don't use sports. Some people go for walks on the beach. I mean, that's another thing I can do. Anytime I'm feeling it, I just can head right over to the coast. I live here in San Diego, and right. It instantly just drops everything. I just relax, and it feels so good.
Do you have rituals that you've created? Like, do you have a certain series of things or kind of stuff like that where it's like, I do this activity once in a while, or are you intentional in that area?
I have been at different points in my life, and I'm going through a transition myself, so I'm kind of learning what are my new rituals, and I think that's really important to talk about, is we're going to do different things at different points in our life to help us break through and to help us, deal with that overwhelm and what's going on. So I'd say yes, I probably have a list of things, many of which I've mentioned, that are my go-tos. And I've become really aware in my body and myself, so that I know when I need to use those things and when I need to do that. As far as like,
so what's it for you? Like walk me through, if you don't mind. Like what is it you have to do to like get yourself into that energy-rich place and to where you're ready to rock and roll and ready to go?
Okay. One of the most important things for me is just being really clear and focused on why I'm doing all this, right?
Okay.
And so really clear with what my purpose is, being really clear with why I'm doing that. One of the things we were talking about earlier that I wanted to get back to was also asking for help, right? Getting support, having a community, and when you need to, hiring a coach, So I knew I wanted to take the next step in my life. I knew there were things that I wanted and reasons I needed to get out of the stage of overwhelm that I was in. So I hired a coach this year. And and that leads into why I'm doing the virtual summit that I'm doing. So there are things that we do to help us take those steps. For me personally, it's usually having a pretty consistent exercise schedule, so that I know, and I have to schedule it in. So when I'm not injured, I have, on Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning at 8:30, I take this class, or I do this, and I do really well being consistent when I schedule it into my day.
Right.
Another thing you said, what gets you going and what gets you juiced up? Music. I talk to my clients all the time, like, have a playlist. I don't care what era the music was from. I tend to like I like a lot of music, but like there's just some of those songs from the 80s when I was growing up that make, just light me up. And so have a small, short playlist that's like your rock me, light me up songs. And that can shift your state so quickly and so perfectly and get you excited. So an example of that is I used to be someone that I'd be driving in the car and that was my time to catch up. That was the time when I wasn't with the kids, or maybe they were busy in the back, and I could, hop on my earpiece and talk to someone in the car. But that didn't always energize me. Sometimes it drained me because it was, complaining about stuff, or, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened, things like that. And so I learned to shift that to having quiet moments in the car is actually really nice.
Right.
But music, right? Like, I'm driving to work, or I'm driving to go hang out with the group of people I really care about. Like, put those songs on and listen to that playlist, and man, it just would start me up so quickly. And I had a choice at that point in time. Do I want to go here, or do I want to go here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's really powerful. Like, it's just, I don't know. I've learned that when I start that spiral, because I've been guilty of that spiral, like going into overwhelm,
All
getting
of us have.
frustrated. When I start to take an inventory of that and I decide, okay, it's time to come out of this. I realize that I'm not following my rituals. Like I have to, drink good water. I have to eat right. I have to work out. Meditation really helps for me. And it's like when I start to put those things back into my life, then like the other stuff makes sense. And if I don't do that, then I get run down. I'm irritable. I might snap at people when I don't mean to. It's there's that just, if I don't build that foundation, it just kind of crumbles.
Yeah, and you just hit on two things that are super important, and I didn't even mention them as rituals of mine, but they are just inherent. Eating and sleeping, right?
Yeah,
If you
yeah.
look at some of the research on stress, it will show you, that is really, really important. Sleep is really important. It helps you feel more rested. You're less irritable. You're not as snappy. Food, absolutely, and everybody has different ways that their bodies react and respond to things. I always tell clients and other moms, I say, I always know, okay, it's almost 2:30, the kids are getting out of school, I need to go eat something healthy. I always just need to get a really good snack in right then, maybe some protein or something, but it just helps me make sure that I'm regulated, so to speak, and prepared for, whatever's coming in the door at me at that point.
Right. Like my fiance calls me the Incredible Hulk when I don't eat. She's like, you don't want to see him angry, because I start to get really. It's almost like a shaky irritability thing. And if I've gone too long without eating, once like I guess I started eating doing the every 2 to 3 hours years ago, and if I get out of that, it really just messes with my metabolism a lot.
Yeah, I think it's a key area for a lot of people, and I think it's the first area, taking care of our health and our wellness, that people let go of. Oh, well, I don't have time to eat, or I don't know what to make, or I'm just gonna grab this candy bar instead, and it really can have a negative impact.
Right. So okay, so going back to this, if you wanted to, you're looking at the stress and overwhelm in your life, which we live in a fast society, and there's lots of demands from lots of different places, and if you've got kids and you've got a family, there's an even a larger set of demands on you. So if you want to build a base to be successful, well, first off, you were saying, one, you got to recognize when you're there and have some antidotes to get out of it, and you also have to build this base. So build the base with health, build the base with fitness, build the base with you kind of hit all areas. You were saying, like, okay, I need to feed my body, I need to feed my mind, I need to feed my spirit in some way. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. And also in business, what do you need to do? And in business and personal, I think it's really important to have systems set up, right? Systems that are going to help you. So in the business and the coaching world, you'll see people that are marketing really specifically, like how to increase your clients, or how to create a good sales funnel, right? You need some systems in place so that you're not spinning your wheels and just trying all these different things and being all over the place. You want to be really clear with what you're doing and really intentional.
Right. So we have another question that's kind of relevant to what we're talking about right now. So Benny Mayberry asks, and thank you for asking questions, by the way. This is really good. We're getting interactive.
Great. I hope I can answer them.
So he asks, is there more to not being overwhelmed than just redirecting your energy to somewhere else? I think that is a very good idea and very helpful. He says, in fact, I just did that before the show. Just wondering, is there more?
Okay.
Is there more to just redirecting your energy somewhere else? I guess that's kind of the question.
Sure. So I think one of the things we're talking about is strategies to manage overwhelm. So we're talking about things that you can do when you're getting there. But is there a deeper layer? Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's something that we can go in our own personal growth and development to look at on a deeper level so that we don't keep, again, repeating those patterns and getting, we can keep getting to that crazy overwhelm on a daily basis if we don't look a little bit deeper and ask ourselves, where's this coming from and what is that, and learning to address that as well. So
hitting the I guess you kind of touched on it again. We've kind of gone in reverse a little bit.
Yeah.
So hitting on where what are the rules, right? What are the rules behind that, and is that there's and you also mentioned, is there an event or is there a decision that was made in the past? Is that kind of where you start exploring that piece of it?
You know what? I really think so, Josh. I think, and that's a huge part of the structure and the model that I've learned from the Robbins-Madanes training, is really understanding what our blueprint is and how we define ourselves based on different areas and different needs we have. And part of how we do that is looking at what are those life decisions, what are those rules and beliefs, and how have they gotten us to where we are, and are they working for us?
And what do you, and when you say blueprint, what do you mean by blueprint?
So it's like a framework. There's different ways to look at it, and there's different training programs that do different things. One of the strategies I use with clients is I have them. I like to be very visual. I think it's helpful to write things down so we can think all of this, and that's great. But if you don't write it down, there's something about when you, and I learned this a long time ago in a training, there's something about when you write things down, you're using another process in your brain. You're having to think and send messages to your hand to write it down, and then the messages go from your hand back up to your brain, and there's this whole other kind of wiring and process that's going on. And I'm not a scientist, so I can't explain that. But I think it's really helpful to write things down, and it's helpful to be clear. Like going back to my example of the list I made when I was younger, and here's things that I want to do and a way I want to live my lifestyle. So I think it's really helpful to write things down and to explore that. One of the things I'll have clients do is write along, like make a chart, like a graph, a bar graph. And I'll have them pick a lot of different topics, maybe 8 to 10 different topics. You can pick your business, you can pick your family, you can pick health and wellness, spirituality, hobbies. Just off the top of my head, those are the ones I'm thinking about. And you draw a bar like 0 to 10 up the side, and you draw a bar graph all the way up to 10 for each of those. And each of those are listed along the bottom. And then you go through and you think, what would a 10 look like in each of these areas? And you write that down on another piece of paper. And that's a, what would it look like? Dream big, right?
Yeah.
So if you have house, in your living space down there, what would that house look like? Like for me, years ago, I'm like, I want a loft. I want the rooms painted different colors. I want new furniture in this room. Like that was my home, an environment one. And so I wrote down what a 10 was, and then I shade, then after you do that for each of the areas, you shade in where you are now. So I would shade it all the way up to maybe my home was a 5. And then I said, okay, so I'm at a 5, I want to be a 10 in this area. And so then I said, what needs to happen for me to get to a 6? Okay.
And just take it one step at a time.
Yeah,
right.
And so it's about taking steps. And so it feels too overwhelming, and I didn't even think it was possible to build that loft, right? But the loft and the big soak tub, those are the 2 things that I really want. But next thing I knew, I was painting the rooms, and the kids were they were little, and they were just helping me, and we were putting color on the walls, and it was so fun. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, here I am, I'm taking those steps. The loft isn't happening right now, but I'm taking those steps. And so here I am now, years later from when I made that chart in this particular area for my example, and now I'm working towards my loft. Now I see it, now it's coming, it's just not here yet.
Right.
It's part of what, what keeps me going and keeps me driven is I know I'm working towards something that's important to me. So I think by getting really clear in all those different areas and looking at where you are now and where you want to go, and then asking yourself, what's one step I can take in the next 3 to 6 months to help me get there? Or sometimes we decide I really want to accelerate in this area, like business is what I'm focusing on. And so what do I need to do? What do I want to do and set for goals in that area? And maybe in this other area, I can let that go. This isn't as important to me. You know, I had one client, they were a 3 in one area when they shaded in their bar graph, but they said, that's okay.
Right.
I'm okay with that. I'm fine with being a 3. That's not really important to me right now. These 3 areas are really important. So again, I think that's really important to stay out of overwhelm. Is it's not about working on everything at the same time. It's about picking 2 or 3 things.
Right. And I really like that process, by the way.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm almost like, okay, let's stop this. I want to do it myself. But I like where, because I know I've done some stuff like that before, but I always look at it. I'm like, well, if I'm at a 5, like, okay, how do I get to a 10? And I just want to like, you know, and I think that inherently that does make that stress. That does, because then you beat yourself up for, well, I'm not at the 10. I'm not at the 10. Rather than like where it sounds like your process, you enjoy the steps a little more along the way. It sounds like that.
Right. Well, it helps you get present, right? And
Right.
it helps you focus on what you can do now. And then I think a really important thing is kind of celebrating those successes too, right? It's not always about getting to the station. There's a poem called The Station that I always tell people to go read. It's not always about getting to the station. It's about enjoying life along the way. That's always been really important to me. And so one of the things that I like to do in my journaling, and I'm not going to say I do it every night because I don't, but I do it often, is I keep it really simple. And I had my kids start doing this year too. And we have little books that are on the kitchen table, and we don't do it every day because if we did it every day, it would become a chore and they would rebel against it. But they look forward to it when we do have time and we're sitting around. And what we write is, this is something that I'm grateful or thankful for.
Yeah.
And this is something that I accomplished today. Something I accomplished today. And what's really fun about that, and you can use that in your business, you can use that in your personal life, you can use that with your family. I'm just going to talk because I'm passionate about my family. What I love about that with my kids is it's about teaching them how to look at what types of things, and I think we need to work on this too, but what are accomplishments? They're not always being the 10, Josh. Right. Sometimes it's just the little step, or the friend that you helped when they fell down on the playground, or the older person that asked you to get something down for them from the top shelf at the grocery store. And right. I always say it's those little things that start to help meet my needs because I'm contributing, I'm getting connection with other people, I'm getting certainty that I'm the kind of person that I want to be. So I'm getting my needs met in those ways as well.
And the cool thing about that I like is that you're starting to train your brain to look for those things, right?
Yeah.
Like as you're starting to say, okay, what am I grateful for? What have I accomplished? Then you're actually reviewing and going, wow, I did this, I did that, I did this, and rather than like, I know I've had so many days where I get to the end of the day and I'm just like, I feel like I've done nothing, but then if I start to look at it, I go, wow, I did get a lot done today. I did this, I did that.
Yeah.
So it's a training process, right? How do you find that I'm sure you've seen it with your kids. How do you find that they appreciate their day more, or does that make them more productive? Have you seen, more productivity out of that, or?
I'm not sure if I've seen any more productivity with them. We just started doing it this year, but I just think it's about awareness, and like you said, it's a training of our brain. I think I'm fascinated by like the neuropsychology field and neuroscience, and all about rewiring your brain and being able to create neurogenesis and open up new pathways. I mean, it's absolutely incredible to me. And right. So I think any of these things that we're talking about, it's a rewiring. We get stuck in patterns, right? It comes down to patterns. We can get in depressive thought patterns. We can get in always being worried about things. I'm an analytical thinker. I mean, this has been truly my work, and I'm still continuing to do this as work in my life because I can go so quickly into analytical, but no, and I can see 5 steps ahead, and I'm like, oh no, that's not going to work, forget it. And it's like really for me about slowing down and being focused and retraining my brain. So yeah, it's really cool what you were just saying about how you catch yourself sometimes, because when you put this into practice and you do it on a regular basis, then you just go to it without thinking. So last night I had that moment too. I was, okay, I don't know if I got everything done that I wanted to do today. And, I had a mixture of things I wanted to accomplish and social things that I wanted to do. And then all of a sudden my brain, without even consciously thinking about it, was like, oh my gosh, Kim, look at all the things that happened today and what great connection you had with the people that you got to spend your day with. And, it was just an instant, and it was so cool to feel, because I was like, oh, I've done this. I'm rewiring that and connecting that.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel really proud, because I haven't always been that way.
No, that's totally powerful. That's totally powerful. I like it. I mean, it sounds like you start to build those rituals and that, and I've been fairly good at doing the morning rituals. I need to get doing the nightly rituals, like that one you're talking about, just like reviewing the day. I know that's I already see the value in that, to just to add that in.
Yeah, and I'm more of a night ritual person, because I'm not a morning person. So, I usually get up and go. I get up right when I have to, and I go. And I've got kids to get out the door before I can typically start my day. What I have found, though, is when I set the alarm and get up 15 minutes earlier, and I've been really trying to put this into practice, and I'm not consistent with it, but I am, see, I'm I'm working in action too here.
Right.
All this. Yeah. But when I do get up 15 minutes earlier, my day always goes better.
Right.
I'm not going to lie. It just gives me a moment to take for myself. I'm not rushed getting ready. I can take that moment to say, okay, today is going to be a good day. Here's how I'm going to do it. This morning is going to be a good morning. I'm going to, stay calm and not have meltdowns at the breakfast table with the family. Like, it really does make a huge difference. And like piggybacking on that, relaxation breathing, like just a really basic thing that helps relieve stress is just to slow down. Like you were saying, we're in such a fast-paced world that we're going all the time, and we tend to take really shallow breaths, and we're just going. And so just taking a deep breath, and letting the oxygen get all the way down to our toes and back is so important. But we won't remember to do that if we don't practice it. So when I talk to clients about doing that, I say, okay, this is your exercise, and I give them a specific exercise, and you're going to do this at breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day for a week. Not when you're stressed or not when you need it. You're just going to do it at breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah.
And that's how they learn to practice it. You will never go to these tools and strategies when you most need it if you haven't already put it into action or practice.
Right, because you have to condition it. I mean, it's just like a muscle that you just have to regularly exercise.
It is a muscle that you're building. Absolutely.
Right. Very cool. No, I thank you. I really appreciate all that you really imparted on that. Let's I know you got to go at the top of the hour, so I don't want to hold you too long. So let's talk about your telesummit. So this has been the big project you've been working on. I know you've been doing a lot of cool, amazing interviews. What's it about? I mean, what's it about? What have you learned? What's kind of the deal with that project?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I'm so excited about it. I'm having so much fun. I didn't realize how much fun I was going to have, because again, it was a step for me in breakthrough, right? I had to take that step and step out of my overwhelm of going and doing a video summit. I'm not doing a telesummit. I'm doing it video so they can see us like you and I are doing. Yeah, and that was a huge step for me. I'm not, I'm the one that's always behind the camera in all the family videos. I'm not the one that likes to put on the show or be up front necessarily. I'd love to organize, but behind the scenes. So it was a big step for me, and it has been so fun. So fun taking that leap. The other day I posted in my group how proud I was feeling because I was having so much fun. And part of that, like just a little strategy that I learned, was just letting go and not worrying about how it's supposed to be and all those little details, and just being present and having fun with it. And kind of like you and I are doing here. So Create Your Business Breakthrough is the virtual summit that I'm hosting. And it is a summit to discover proven strategies to shatter overwhelm, manage your business, and love your life. So I'm sort of taking everything that we talked about and interviewing 21, I'm saying now plus, because I have a few extra bonus experts, but 21 plus experts who have different ideas and strategies and focuses. So it's all focused on business, but what we do in business is what we do in our own life. How we deal with overwhelm here is how we deal with overwhelm there. So this information can be great for anyone. I've got speakers talking about systems, I interviewed someone this morning who's talking about how to get off that emotional roller coaster. I've got coaches, internet marketers, all kinds of people coming to speak and share and impart with you their tools and strategies, their systems, their tips to help you shatter that overwhelm and get where you want to be. And it's been so much fun. Just so many key things coming out of it, but we've talked about them today. It's focus. It's knowing your why. It's prioritizing, right? And not getting caught up chasing all the shiny objects, and getting really, really clear with what you're trying to do, and then taking those steps, right? Not leaps, but steps to get there. And if you take those steps, it's amazing. All of a sudden you look back and you're like, oh, wow, I'm here. It's really cool. So it's a lot of fun. I don't have, the website isn't live for that yet, but if anybody wants information, the launch for the Create Your Business Breakthrough Summit is going to be June 16th. And if you just go to my website, kimjonescoaching.com, you can go ahead and just sign up, opt into, I have a couple opt-ins there. You can opt in. I'm going to be mailing to my whole mailing list as soon as I get everything up and going. And it will be the website that you can go to sign up for the summit. And then you'll start receiving emails with each speaker all the days throughout the summit. So
very cool. Very cool. I like that. You mentioned what have been the big breakthroughs for you? I know you were saying that this you had to come out from behind the camera, just become present. Like what was the what kind of challenges have come up for you that you didn't expect?
Yeah, two huge things come to mind right away. Time and getting on camera were kind of my two big things, and it really just to get time is always an issue for all of us, right? But there's 24 hours in a day, and there's people that do it and people that don't, And so I was like, I'm going to be one of those people that do it. It's not an option. So it was really being clear and deciding this is what I want to do. I'm going to do it, and I'm not going to not do it. And it's absolutely incredible. If I shared with you my calendar, or you saw, what's going on in my life and my family's life, and and work. I'm still working with all of my clients right now. It's incredible how it comes together. But I've just scheduled. I've scheduled time for it. I've worked at night. I've had to maybe push, and tempo is what my coach calls it. It's like, I'm in my sprint right now. I'm doing this, but I know I'm not doing it forever. You can't always be tempoing, she says, right? You can't always be running the sprint, but knowing that I'm doing that right now, and that it's all going to come into this amazing project, and it's going to end, and then I'm going to be able to take a couple days and go, okay, I did it.
That's what I was going to ask you. Is like, have you scheduled a vacation, or have you scheduled a trip, or
Yeah, you want to know what's really funny? I got to kind of pick the launch of my summit anytime this summer, and I absolutely scheduled it around my vacation. So the 4 days prior to the summit launching, because I'll be done with the interviews probably in another week or two. So the 4 days prior to my summit launching, I'm on an annual beach camping trip with my family and a whole bunch of other families. So I'll be there. I'll probably have to check in on email and make sure everything's ready to go for Monday, but I have that planned. And then later in the summer, yeah, we have another family vacation planned. We're going to be visiting some national parks. So absolutely, that's an important part, is always knowing that there's something on the other side. And maybe it's not always a trip, but it's a morning to sleep in, or an afternoon walk, in a beautiful place, or a conversation or lunch or dinner with a friend. Last night, like I said, I'm in the push and I'm working hard for this summit, but I made sure this weekend to schedule time to connect and be with people that are important to me too. So I had a really great dinner with a good friend, and I truly felt so rejuvenated after that. It was really, really important to do, and then ready to wake up today. And I had an interview this morning, and I'm talking with you, and got a little bit more work to do today. And then, it's a holiday, so I'm going to spend the afternoon getting outdoors and relaxing. And, it's all about what that right balance is for you. And for each of us, that's different. So I'm not trying to say people should do it my way. I just like to put a lot of stuff out there, and then you got to figure out what's right for you.
Right.
So,
right.
And then one of the other cool things about the summit, I just want to add, is nothing's being sold on the summit, so it's free. I hope everybody will join us, because I'm just super excited to be sharing this information. But all of the speakers are also going to be offering free gifts, and some of them are giving some pretty amazing things. One of them is giving away a book. Several of them are giving away strategies and systems for business, free sessions, free breakthrough sessions with them. So, please, come join me with this. It's going to be really great.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I, greatly appreciated you, and I greatly appreciate, us sharing this. And I know there's some things I'm going to implement, and definitely try. And I hope that, anybody listening, either to us or the replay, will be able to figure stuff out. So what we'll do is, since you're launching later than this, is right now we'll put the link for your website, the KimJonesCoaching.com. We'll put that in the description box. But then once you do launch, once that's ready, once that site is ready, we'll put that in the description too. So you'll be able to check that out. But definitely thank you. I mean, is there anything else off the top of your head you can think of that you'd like to share before we end today?
No, nothing off the top of my head. I think that I hope that this doesn't overwhelm anybody listening to our talk today, because there's so much information we offered. What I encourage, all the listeners to do, and anybody replaying this hangout, is just to pick one thing. Pick one thing at a time and implement it. Make your decision this week that I'm going to do this, or I'm going to think about this every day, and do that. And then go back and re-watch it if there were some other things, or write down some notes, and then the next week add something else. And that's really, to me, how I've been able to effectively take steps in my own life, is by doing things one step at a time. You just can't do it all at the same time, or you end up doing nothing.
Right. Yeah, you get caught in that loop. Oh my God, I gotta do this.
Yeah, and then the other thing that happens is we forget. Okay, what was I supposed to be doing? Oh my gosh, I don't know. So it's too many things to remember. So one thing at a time, one decision, and practice it every day. Right.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you for all this really super, super cool stuff. And I look forward to your summit. Like, definitely maybe we could do something again. We do a little promo again as you get closer to it, or anything, anything I could do to help you out there. So.
Awesome. I appreciate that, Josh. I'm just doing it. I really just picked this theme and this summit, and the whole kind of purpose behind it is just based on what I've seen in my work, and what I really just have a passion for helping people, overcome, and to find that joy and fulfillment, and to live that life that you want, that you deserve. Very cool. Well, stick around. But thank you, and signing off. Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Bye. Bye.